sheer joy. It comes direct from Aquinas. And that joy requires companionship. In today's scientists are asking, what's the purpose of the universe? What's the purpose of the universe? It's an important question. A lot of people are asking it. Aquinas gave his answer 8 centuries ago. Joy is the purpose of the universe. Sheer joy is God's, and this demands companionship. No one wants to be joyful alone. You celebrate with others. You share your joy with others. Aquinas is saying that's how it is with divinity. They really want to share the joy of existence. And here we are to share that joy. He also says that joy is a human's noblest act. That joy is a human's noblest act. Let's just pause with that for a second. What if he's right? If he's right, shouldn't we build education on joy? Why not build our worlds and our cultures, our communities on our noblest acts? Joy. How would that redefine education? How would it redefine politics? How would it redefine law? How would it redefine economics? How would it redefine religion? It's a stunning observation. He says God is supremely joyful and therefore supremely conscious. That consciousness and joy go together. Are you more conscious when you're in a state of joy? And does one feed the other? Your consciousness feeds joy and your joy nurtures your consciousness. He says God delights. God is always rejoicing and doing so with a single and simple delight. In fact, it is appropriate to say that love and joy are the only human emotions we can literally attribute to God. Love and joy. And of course, they go together. Joy is birthed by love. So joy is a sign of the depth of your love and how you yield to love. He says love is a cause of joy. Everyone takes joy in their beloved. Love and joy constitute the basis of all attraction. Love is the origin, and joy is the end result. The only person who truly has joy is one who lives in love, he says. I do think this one observation of the importance of joy could reinvent human civilization. Now here is his one short sentence definition of religion. He says, religion is supreme thankfulness or gratitude. Supreme thankfulness or gratitude. Notice, what isn't there? He doesn't say religion is a lot of beautiful buildings, many of them with mortgages on them. He doesn't say religion is about hierarchy, about dogmas, piles of dogmas, doctrines, hell or heaven. The essence of religion is supreme thankfulness or gratitude. That's what religion's for, to give thanks. I remember Dorothy Day's story. She was an atheist and a communist as a young woman and living with her lover, who was a communist and activist in his day. In the 1920s, and she became pregnant. And she got so excited about bringing birth into the world. She said, I had to thank someone. And that's when she looked into Christianity. She became a Catholic. At that time, Catholics represented the immigrants, yes, the immigrants, in a heavy way in America. So many Irish, so many Italians, so many Polish, all of them quite Catholic countries fleeing after the First World War to America. She had to thank someone. She became a Christian and a Catholic. And her boyfriend broke up with her because he was thoroughly atheistic. But what we discovered quite recently, she still loved this man, the father of her child, and they continued a correspondence. We did not know this until a few years ago. We discovered these letters, but she became a very great leader, as you know, of the Catholic worker movement, working always living among the poor and working with the poor for the sake of justice and community. And when it comes to gratitude, saying that religion is supreme thankfulness or gratitude, well, in the Christian tradition, the word for worship or the Last Supper reenacted, the Mass and so forth, the word is Eucharist. Eucharistine is the Greek word for thank you. So at least that meaning of religion has found its way into the heart of the Christian service, Christian celebration. Now here is a sentence that I think is just stunning and turns everything inside out from Aquinas. The first and primary meaning of salvation is this. Now let me turn this around as a question. When you hear this word salvation, what does it mean to you? Does it mean getting to heaven? Staying out of hell? What does salvation mean to you? Well, here's Aquinas, 13th century. The first and primary, two things about this word. Meaning of salvation is this: to preserve things in the good. To preserve things in the good. I wrote a book called Original Blessing, which caused a real stir and kind of blew the roof off the Vatican, not the present Vatican, but the Vatican, two popes behind this one, well, 1 and 2 behind. And because they were very married to the idea of original sin. But the word blessing means goodness. It's a theological word for goodness, original goodness. Well, Thomas Aquinas uses that phrase, original goodness, a number of times. So a book on original blessing is no heresy at all. It's in the tradition, of course. Reread chapter 1 of Genesis, the first page of the Bible. It's all about how good creation is. Each creature, it's good. This is good, creation is good. This creature is good. And then all come together at the end of chapter 1, including the humans, and it's all called as a circle. The sum is very good. Well, Aquinas absolutely thinks that way, and it comes through here in his meaning of salvation. Not just any meaning, but the first and primary meaning. Preserve things in the good. Now you tell me, is this not at the heart of the eco-crisis today? In other words, all our work to green the earth, to bring back a balance between the human and the rest of creation, the rest of nature, the eco-movement and movements and all their expressions and efforts to wean ourselves from fossil fuels and so forth, find alternative energy and so forth. All those efforts, some of them being destroyed deliberately by an entire political party in America currently that is in denial about climate change, even though it's happening everywhere. All this is about preserving things in the good. Now, if you don't believe in the good, if you don't believe that healthy air, healthy soil from which to make our food, and healthy waters, and beauty itself, if you don't think those are important, well, I suppose one can continue to despoil the earth. And what about our children and grandchildren? Aren't they important enough to inherit a healthy and a good, a preserved, in that sense, earth? That they deserve it? To preserve things in the good. Aquinas says, blessedness is grounded on nature. There is no thing that does not share in goodness and beauty. Well, folks, that's original goodness, and that is original blessing. He also talks about primal goodness and original freshness. So he has these three words: original goodness, primal goodness, and original freshness. Those three words add up to my effort to name our situation as original blessing. And sin, after all, came only 250,000 years ago or so when Homo sapiens stood up, our immediate ancestors, our species. But the goodness has been unfolding for 13.8 billion years. So to begin religion with sin, or something called original sin, is so utterly anthropocentric and human-centered. Pope Francis calls it narcissism of our species, to begin with us. You begin with the cosmos, you begin with history, you begin with evolution, and follow this goodness and this magic, these miracles that have happened along the way to give birth to all this wonder and grace and beauty and goodness. Aquinas says, God blesses us by causing goodness in us, and we are invited to return goodness to one another. So preserving things in the good is the name of the game today. Another teaching from Aquinas is about artists. Aquinas talks a lot about artists. He calls God the artist of artists. And he says, every artist loves what he or she gives birth to. The poet loves her poems. The potter loves his pots. How can God, who is the artist of everything, hate anything? So in talking about creativity in the artist, he brings in the Holy Spirit. He says, and this is an affirmation of humanity's strength and beauty. He says, the same Spirit who hovered over the waters at the beginning of creation. Now we might change that scientific story today, who hovers over the fireball for 750,000 years at the beginning of creation, where this universe was born, hydrogen, helium atoms. The same Spirit who hovered over the waters at the beginning of creation hovers over the mind of the artist at work. Hovers over the mind of the artist at work. He is directly connecting the birth of the universe with what goes on in our minds. And by artist, he does not mean just someone who paints or writes. All of us are artists. We're all made in the image and likeness of the artist of artists. You're an artist. It doesn't mean that you dance professionally or make movies, or maybe you do. But it's an art just to find food and cook food and make food, to decorate your house, your rooms. To raise children is an art. It's certainly not a science by itself. Science might help a little. To make a living. And this is how pre-modern people thought of art. Aquinas has a whole passage where he talks about the art of shipbuilding, the art of horse riding and caring for horses. The word art was a very generic term before the Enlightenment period, where everything was put up in the head and only the left brain, the rational brain, was honored. It's taken for granted in many other cultures. I remember once when I was in Bali, and I got in a taxi, a beat-up old taxi, and there were two young men in it, driving. One was driving, one wasn't. But they had an altar on the dashboard of this beat-up old car, of a beautiful flower and everything. And I said, did you make that altar? Oh, yes, he said, every morning when I start work, I make an altar. See, he's bringing acknowledgement, gratitude, grace to his job. In this ugly beat-up car, he creates an altar. Everyone has art in us. Friendship is an art. Lovemaking is an art. So this whole idea of shrinking the meaning of art and creativity, this is not pre-modern. It's totally modern. And again, you talk to indigenous peoples about, they don't even have the word art in their vocabulary in many of their languages. Why? Because they said, we're here to make beauty all day long. That's what life is, about making beauty. Why do you need a single word for it? It's the same as living. I want to stress his teachings about justice and compassion. He says the proper objects of the heart are truth and justice. I just love that. The heart. Really? I thought the head was about truth, or the rational mind was about truth. No. The proper objects of the heart are truth and justice. They go together. And that's why despots everywhere want to be tyrants everywhere, want to control truth. And they tell lies. It's a habit. They live in a world of lies. And that's why they want to control media and information sources, because truth and justice go together. Lies and justice do not go together. Lies and injustice go together. And none of them have anything to do with the heart. They are about control. The proper objects of the heart are truth and justice. Bell Hooks writes, the heart of justice is truth-telling. The heart of justice is truth-telling. You've heard the phrase, speaking truth to power. What prophets do, they often get killed for it, like Jesus did. Another statement from Aquinas, the vision of God is arrived at through justice. That means all the work you do for justice, whether it's eco-justice, gender justice, economic justice, racial justice, social justice, this is a path to the vision of God. Because Aquinas, like many mystics, says God is justice and compassion is the divine work. So these are not just goals to be just or to practice justice. They are the way, the path. The vision of God is arrived at through justice. And this remarkable statement from Aquinas, compassion is the fire that Jesus came to set on the earth. Wow. Jesus came to set a fire on the earth. Now, what is this fire? A fire of love, a fire of compassion, a fire of caring, and a fire of justice. Because compassion is justice. Here's a practical note from Aquinas. A trustworthy person is angry at the right people, for the right reasons, expresses it in the appropriate manner, and for an appropriate length of time. The permission he gives there to tap into your moral outrage, to your anger. But don't let it run you. You steer it. And the acts of nonviolence, of protest, these are acts of compassion and of justice. And they lead us to the divine. And don't be afraid of your anger. Just find a good place for it and steer it. You're in charge, not your anger. And this is very different from the dualistic tradition that talks about sitting, in a sense, sitting on your anger. No, use it as part of the fire that's in our bellies that gets things done. Aquinas says nothing great happens without anger. This is what sustains you, so you persevere in the struggle for justice, in the struggle for compassion. And this is the fire that Jesus came to set on the earth, and that we accompany him in this task. Or as Rabbi Heschel says, we are the hands for the compassion of God.